In the distant reaches of space, beyond the farthest known galaxies, lies the planet Viridari, a world teeming with life. Its landscape stretches across vast crystalline cities and lush forests that glow with bioluminescent light. Viridari was home to many races, each with their own histories, cultures, and advancements. Yet, among all the stories passed down through generations, one stood out: humanity. Long ago, the human race was said to have ruled vast territories in the galaxy, thriving on Earth. Their legends spoke of explorers who ventured beyond the stars, battling powerful empires with unmatched determination. These tales were often dismissed by many of Viridari's younger inhabitants, seen as myths born from ancient stories passed through the ages. To most, humanity was nothing more than a distant memory, a footnote in the archives of history. Lyora, however, was different. From a young age, she had been fascinated by these so-called myths. Her parents often warned her of their dangers, cautioning that to believe in something long forgotten could lead only to disappointment. Yet, Lyora's curiosity knew no bounds. Her days were spent poring over ancient scrolls and deciphering fragments of old texts. She would visit the ruins of once grand starports, where ancient ships lay dormant, forgotten by time. It was in one such place that Lyora uncovered something strange: a faint, humming beacon embedded deep within the crumbling metal hull of a starship. At first, she thought it was just another relic, a piece of a long-lost civilization, but something about its faint pulse felt alive. She brought it back to her village, where the elders dismissed it as nothing more than an ancient signal, meaningless in the present age. However, Lyora refused to believe it. To her, this beacon was a clue, a glimpse into the truth of humanity. Determined, Lyora began to research further. She pieced together old maps, star charts, and forgotten navigation systems, creating a path to a distant system where the beacon originated. The journey would be perilous, but Lyora's heart burned with a sense of purpose. Despite warnings from her peers, Lyora set out with a small crew of explorers, misfits and dreamers who, like her, saw beyond the boundaries of what was deemed possible. Together, they left Viridari behind, their ship cutting through the stars with the faint glow of the beacon guiding them forward. As they approached the destination, a sense of awe washed over Lyora. She could feel the weight of centuries, the echoes of an ancient past that once thrived in the depths of the galaxy. The idea of humans no longer seemed like a myth. They were something more, an unyielding force that had shaped the universe in ways no one fully understood. Little did Lyora know, her journey was about to change everything she believed about history, humanity, and the universe itself. The distant system they had reached was unlike anything Lyora had ever seen. A cluster of moons orbited a dim star, surrounded by scattered debris from what once might have been an ancient space station or colony. The beacon had led them here, the final resting place of a human vessel, lost to time. Lyora's crew, a diverse group of explorers and dreamers, stood quietly on the bridge of their ship. The atmosphere was tense, yet curious. They had spent weeks traveling through the vast emptiness of space, their destination clear, but the unknown always held its own dangers. "Let's approach carefully," Lyora instructed. "There's no telling what might be left." The ship glided towards the derelict human vessel. Its hull was battered, with patches of rust and exposed circuitry. As they drew closer, Lyora's fascination grew. There was an air of mystery surrounding the ship, as if it had been drifting through space, untouched for centuries. "It looks like it's been abandoned for a long time," one of the crew members, a scientist named Karen, said as he scanned the ship's readings. "There's no sign of recent activity." Lyora nodded, her heart racing. "But there's something different. The readings indicate life support is still operational. Barely, but it is." A sudden signal blinked on their consoles, a faint, pulsing frequency originating from deep within the ship. It was the same signal as the beacon they had followed. Lyora's breath caught in her throat. "Someone, or something, is alive in there," she said, her voice steady despite the excitement. Let's find them. The crew set to work securing the ship, moving cautiously through the damaged corridors. Every step echoed through the empty halls. The air was cold, the hum of ancient machinery echoing in the background. They came across rooms filled with untouched technology, most of it far beyond their understanding, relics of a civilization that once thrived across the stars. Then, in a dimly lit chamber at the end of the ship, they found him, a human, frozen in a stasis pod. At first, it was impossible to comprehend. The figure inside appeared to be perfectly preserved, eyes closed, seemingly at peace. He was dressed in a form of military-style armor, though heavily worn, with symbols Leora had never seen before etched into its surface. His face was rugged, weathered by years of hardship, yet there was a quiet strength to him that radiated even in unconsciousness. Is he alive? Terran asked, peering closely at the pod's life support readings. Leora didn't reply. Her mind raced with thoughts of the humans' legends, of stories passed down through generations about warriors who stood against overwhelming odds, fighting for survival when all hope seemed lost. Wake him up, she said, her voice firm. The crew worked quickly to override the pod's security. After what felt like an eternity, the human stirred. His eyes fluttered open, revealing hazel irises that held a quiet intensity. What? Where am I? The human whispered, his voice hoarse and rough. His gaze shifted to the strange faces surrounding him, beings unlike any he had ever encountered. We found you on the old ship, Leora said gently, stepping forward. You've been in stasis for a very long time. Confusion etched his features, and he tried to sit up, only to realize how weak he was. Who are you? He asked, his voice stronger this time. I'm Leora, she replied, offering a hand. From the planet Viridary. And you're Captain Elias Kane, aren't you? The name struck a chord. Kane's brow furrowed as he searched his memories. That name. His voice trailed off. It's been centuries. Leora's heart beat faster. You're a human. Kane stared at her, his expression unreadable. You've heard of us. His voice was filled with disbelief. Myths, stories, legends. Not just myths, Leora said softly. You were real. The galaxy once feared humanity. Your strength, your unity, it brought empires to their knees. For a moment, Kane was silent. Then a faint smile broke across his face, a bitter, reflective one. Those stories, they're all that's left of us. No, Leora insisted. They're more. And you are proof. The beacon, it led us here for a reason. Kane's mind was a whirlwind of memories and doubts. How could he possibly be real? Humans were supposed to be extinct. Yet here he was, alive among strangers who revered him as something mythical. Together, we can understand what happened, Leora continued. And we'll face whatever comes next, together. Kane took a deep breath, his thoughts settling. He saw something in Leora, a determination that matched his own. She believed in more than just survival. She believed in something greater. Let's begin, Kane said, his voice steady. The ship, once abandoned and drifting through the void, now hummed with life as Captain Elias Kane sat upright in the makeshift medical bay. The quiet hum of advanced viridary technology surrounded him, a stark contrast to the isolation he had felt for so long. Leora sat beside him, watching intently as the human adjusted to his new surroundings. She could sense his struggle, centuries of isolation, memories he couldn't quite grasp, and doubts about his own existence. It was hard for her to imagine what Kane had endured, lost in time and space with no one to turn to. How are you feeling? Leora asked gently, her voice calm. Kane leaned back against the cold metal frame of the bed, his eyes scanning the sterile room. He exhaled slowly, trying to gather his thoughts. Confused, he admitted. Lost. But I think I'm starting to remember. Leora gave him a reassuring smile. That's good. You've been through a lot. It's only natural for things to feel a little blurry at first. Kane nodded, though his expression remained pensive. It's not just the memories, he said quietly. It's the feeling of being disconnected. Everything I once knew is gone. The galaxy has moved on, while I've been left behind. Leora frowned slightly, her brows furrowing in concern. The galaxy hasn't forgotten you, she said firmly. Your stories live on. They shaped how we think, how we explore. Even if you don't remember everything yet, we need you, what you know, what you've experienced. Kane's gaze locked onto hers. There was a depth to his eyes, a wariness paired with determination. Why me? Why bring a relic like me back to life? You're not a relic, Leora responded, her voice unwavering. You're a symbol, a reminder that no matter how dire things get, humanity fought. You held on, and because of that, we can too. A heavy silence settled between them, the kind that only arises when two people are grappling with past and future, destiny and uncertainty. Kane broke it first. What do you need from me? He asked, his voice low but steady. We need your knowledge, Leora answered immediately. Your understanding of human technology, of human spirit, and, she paused, your leadership. Kane studied her for a moment longer. There was no hiding the gravity of her request, but something in Leora's eyes told him that this was more than just survival. It was a fight for ideals, for what humanity once stood for. I'll help, he said finally, but on one condition. You tell me everything you know about Viridari and how it's changed. And his voice hardened slightly. How we can avoid making the same mistakes again. Leora smiled softly, the relief evident in her expression. Deal. As Kane began to teach his crewmates, Leora, Terran, and the rest of the team, about the intricacies of human technology, their initial fascination grew into genuine respect. The human vessel's outdated systems, once thought obsolete, started to hum with life as Kane guided them through reactivating defense protocols, navigating through old star maps, and unlocking hidden features long sealed away by time. The core of human technology wasn't just advanced machines, Kane explained one evening in the ship's dimly lit control room. It was the way we adapted. We used what we had, no matter how small, to survive. Leora listened intently, absorbing every word. She had read stories of human ingenuity, but hearing it firsthand from someone who had lived it gave her a deeper understanding. You had to innovate constantly, she said thoughtfully, even when odds seemed impossible. Kane nodded. We weren't afraid to risk everything. That's what kept us alive, and that's what made us dangerous. The crew worked tirelessly, blending Viridari's advanced technology with the human blueprints Kane provided. It wasn't easy. Every step required trial and error, reimagining old systems with new, unfamiliar concepts. But the determination was palpable. With Kane guiding them, the ship began to feel like a true home again, its heart beating with renewed purpose. Outside the ship, the stars stretched endlessly, and the void was eerily silent. Yet inside, the crew's resolve grew stronger with every passing day. They weren't just repairing a vessel, they were resurrecting a legacy. One night, after another successful systems check, Kane and Leora stood on the observation deck, gazing out at the distant nebulae. The vastness of space spread before them, yet Kane felt oddly at peace. It's strange, he said softly, breaking the silence. After all this time, to finally feel like I belong again. Leora smiled, her gaze never leaving the stars. You never really left. You were always out there, part of the stories we told ourselves. Kane turned to her, his expression thoughtful. Maybe that's enough. For now. Together, they stood side by side, watching as the galaxy unfolded before them. A vast, endless mystery that still held hope, even in its darkest corners. The quiet hum of the ship was a constant backdrop as Leora, Kane, and the crew worked to prepare for the inevitable confrontation with the Krell Dominion. News had reached them. A massive fleet, formidable and relentless, was closing in. The Krell, a powerful and ancient race known for their cruelty, had not forgotten humanity's legacy. And now, they were coming to extinguish it once and for all. Leora stood in the ship's command center, staring at the star charts projected across the main screen. "They're already in this system," she said quietly. "We don't have much time." Kane leaned against the console, his arms crossed. His expression was calm, but there was a fire in his eyes. "We knew this would happen eventually," he said. "We just didn't know it would come this soon." The crew moved with urgency. Turin worked on stabilizing ancient weapon systems, merging them with Viridari's technology. Others assisted in recalibrating shields and improving their navigation systems to avoid detection. Every second counted. Leora turned to Kane. "Your knowledge of human tactics, your experience, will be invaluable in guiding us." Kane nodded, his gaze steady. "We fight to survive. That's what we've always done. But how do we win against an enemy this powerful?" Leora asked, frustration creeping into her voice. "The Krell are relentless. They won't stop until we're destroyed." Kane's expression softened as he approached her. "It's not about winning in the conventional sense. It's about finding ways to outmaneuver them, to wear them down, to make them realize that humanity, even in its last remnants, won't go quietly into the void." Leora took a deep breath. "You're right. We've always fought against impossible odds. It's in our nature." As the ship shuddered slightly from nearby scans, the crew tensed. They knew the Krell were closing in fast. Kane's voice cut through the rising tension. "Time to put everything into action," he said. "Prepare for their assault." The Krell fleet appeared as dark silhouettes against the stars, an intimidating formation of ships that blotted out the light of distant galaxies. Their technology was far superior, with weapons capable of slicing through even the most advanced shields. But Kane had a plan, one rooted in centuries of human ingenuity. "Scatter," Kane ordered. "They'll expect us to fight head-on. We'll split into smaller groups, hit them from different angles." Leora's fingers moved swiftly across the control panels as she coordinated their movements. "If we can disrupt their formation, they won't know who to focus on." The ship swerved, narrowly avoiding the first barrage of fire. The Krell ships followed relentlessly, but Kane's tactics kept them on edge. Every burst of energy from the human vessel was calculated, designed to confuse and outmaneuver the enemy. "They're adapting," Turin warned, his voice strained. "Their systems are evolving as we strike." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Good. That means we're forcing them to fight differently. Stay ahead of them. Keep them guessing." Leora watched with admiration as Kane's leadership shone through. His calmness in the heat of battle, his understanding of the enemy's weaknesses, and his unwavering resolve inspired the crew to push beyond their limits. They fought not just for survival, but for something greater, hope. The battle raged on for hours. The Krell unleashed wave after wave of assaults, but Kane's strategy kept them from gaining the upper hand. Each successful strike left a dent in the enemy's armor, a reminder that humanity's tenacity was still alive. Yet, as the ship fired its final salvo, Kane's voice carried a grim tone. "This isn't over. They'll regroup, and next time, they'll come stronger." Leora, her hands still on the controls, glanced back at him. "We'll be ready." Kane gave her a small nod, his expression resolute. "Good, because this isn't just about us anymore. It's about everyone who's ever fought for a place among the stars." As the ship sped away from the battlefield, battered and weary but still intact, the crew knew they had achieved a small victory. Yet the shadows of the Krell Dominion loomed large, and the fight was far from over. The ship drifted through the void of space, its hull scarred from the recent battle. The crew gathered in the dimly lit common area, weary but determined. The confrontation with the Krell had been intense, but it had also brought something else to the forefront. Memories of the past, buried deep within Kane's mind. Leora sat at a nearby console, scrolling through ancient human databases with a focused expression. She had begun to piece together more about humanity's history, its triumphs, its mistakes, and the lessons that could guide them forward. Across from her, Kane rested against a wall, his gaze distant, lost in thought. "Every battle leaves a mark," Leora said softly, glancing at Kane. "Even one as intense as this." Kane nodded slowly, his voice quiet. "There are scars deeper than what you can see. The Krell brought back memories I thought were gone for good." Leora gave him a gentle smile. "You don't have to face this alone." He exhaled, the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders. "It's not just memories. It's the burden of knowing what humanity once lost. The alliances we built, the trust we shattered, and the cost of our survival. You don't have to carry that alone," Leora repeated. "You've helped guide us through this fight, Kane. You've shown us that hope isn't something we should give up on." Kane met her gaze, his eyes searching hers for understanding. "You're different, Leora. You believe in more than just surviving. You believe in creating something new from the ashes." "I believe in the future," Leora said simply. "And I know we can't create it by dwelling on the past alone." The ship's engines hummed softly as the crew worked on repairs and strategized their next steps. Kane often found himself wandering through the ship's corridors, revisiting memories from the distant past, human colonies, battles fought alongside allies, and the mistakes that had led to humanity's downfall. Each thought weighed on him like a burden, but he never let it consume him. One evening, Kane stood near the ship's observation deck, gazing out at the stars. Leora joined him, her presence a quiet comfort in the solitude. "We've come so far," Leora said thoughtfully, "but there's still so much to learn." Kane glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. "You're determined to move forward. That's what humanity always did best: adapt and rebuild." "We've lost much," Leora said, her voice soft. "But we've also gained something new: hope, unity. You've shown us that we're stronger together." Kane leaned on the railing, his eyes scanning the vast expanse. "Hope alone isn't enough. It's the drive to act, to make the impossible possible, that truly defines us." Leora nodded slowly. "Then we'll keep moving forward, no matter the cost." The crew continued their preparations, gathering intelligence on a Krell and refining their strategy. Kane's guidance was invaluable, his experience with human warfare providing insights that no one else could match. Yet, even as they outmaneuvered their enemies, they couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. "They're relentless," Kane said during a tense meeting with Leora and the crew. "The Krell won't stop until they've erased every trace of humanity." Leora clenched her fists, frustration evident on her face. "We've survived worse, and we'll survive this too." Kane's eyes were sharp, focused on the maps displayed before them. "We need to use every advantage we have. The Krell may be advanced, but they've underestimated us before." Tyrion, standing by with a worried expression, added, "And this time, we'll make sure they don't get a second chance." The room grew quiet as the weight of their mission settled in. They weren't just fighting to protect themselves. They were fighting for the legacy of humanity, for the ideals that had shaped them through countless generations. Later that night, Kane reflected on the conversations that had taken place. He sat alone in a dimly lit room, staring at the walls covered in old human symbols. His mind raced with thoughts of battles long past, of alliances broken, and of the human spirit that never truly surrendered. Leora entered quietly, offering a warm smile. "You should get some rest." Kane looked up at her, a quiet gratitude in his eyes. "Rest feels fleeting. But perhaps for now, it's enough." "Together," Leora said softly, "we'll face whatever comes next." Together, they stood side by side, ready to face the unknown. The shadows of the past may linger, but so too does the strength to overcome them. The ship moved through the cold void of space, a beacon of resilience and unity in the face of overwhelming odds. Every crew member worked tirelessly, knowing the threat of the Krell Dominion loomed ever closer. Kane, Leora, and the rest of the team had prepared every contingency, yet the tension aboard the ship was palpable. Kane stood on the bridge, his hands resting on the control panel as he reviewed their latest defensive measures. Leora approached him, her expression calm but focused. "We've done everything we can," she said softly. "Now we wait." Kane looked up at her, his gaze steady. "Waiting isn't enough. We need to keep them from overwhelming us." Leora nodded. "We've trained for this, planned for it. We've faced impossible odds before." Kane gave a small smile. "That's what makes us dangerous. We've learned to fight when there's nothing left to lose." The crew moved quickly to prepare for the next wave of Krell attacks. Shields were strengthened, weapons calibrated, and escape routes plotted. The ship was a well-oiled machine, functioning as a collective effort, a testament to the bond they had formed in the face of adversity. In the cargo hold, Turin worked alongside engineers and technicians, assembling makeshift defenses from scraps of human technology and viridary innovation. His hands were steady as he fitted pieces together, his mind focused entirely on ensuring every part served a purpose. "We're running out of time," Turin muttered under his breath. "But we'll make it work." Kane entered the room, his presence commanding attention. "Every system must be tested," he said. "We can't afford to leave any weakness exposed." Turin glanced up and nodded. "Agreed. We're prepared for whatever they throw at us." Back on the bridge, Leora stood near the communications station, her fingers deftly navigating through encrypted signals. "The Krell are closing in," she said, her voice steady. "They've detected us, but we still have a few hours before they arrive." Kane approached her, his expression thoughtful. "We need to strike first, force them to react to us." Leora frowned. "But if we engage prematurely, we risk losing valuable resources we'll need for defense." "We can't let them dictate the terms of the battle," Kane insisted. "A well-timed strike could disrupt their momentum." Turin stepped in. "We've been preparing for this. If we can breach their formation, even briefly, we'll have a chance to weaken their forces." Leora sighed, weighing their options carefully. "Then we move when the time is right. Together." The crew gathered in the command center, the room filled with determination and resolve. Kane's voice rang out, firm and clear. "We've been through too much to let fear control us," he said. "Today we remind the Krell what humanity stands for: unity, strength, and the will to survive." The crew responded with a chorus of affirmations. Turin and the engineers stood at the ready, their eyes blazing with confidence. Leora watched them all, her heart swelling with pride. They had become a family, bound by their shared purpose. The battle began as Kane had predicted. The Krell fleet, massive and overwhelming, surged forward, their weapons firing in unison. The ship shook as shields absorbed the brunt of the assault, but the crew worked seamlessly, adjusting their tactics to counter the enemy's every move. Leora's voice cut through the chaos. "We're holding them off. Keep it up." Kane led the charge, directing counterattacks and guiding the crew through the chaos. His knowledge of human warfare, combined with viridary innovation, provided a unique advantage. The crew fought with a determination that seemed to unsettle the Krell. As the battle raged, Kane stood at the helm, his focus unyielding. He knew every second counted. The Krell were relentless, but so were they. Hours passed, and though the battle was fierce, the tide began to turn. The crew's combined efforts chipped away at the enemy's strength, forcing the Krell to retreat. On the bridge, Leora smiled, her hands trembling slightly. "We did it. We've pushed them back." Kane exhaled, his voice steady. "For now, but we'll need to keep moving. They'll regroup, and we'll be ready." The crew celebrated cautiously, knowing the fight was far from over. But for the first time in a long while, they felt a glimmer of hope. Together, bound by unity and the indomitable spirit of humanity, They would face whatever came next. The ship glided silently through the stars, leaving behind the debris of the recent battle. Kane stood at the observation deck, watching as the distant galaxies passed by. The crew had fought fiercely, pushing back the Krell Dominion's advance, but the threat was far from over. Leora joined him, her presence a calming force amidst the uncertainty that still lingered. "We've bought some time," she said softly, "but we know they'll come again." Kane nodded, his expression thoughtful. Time enough to prepare, to rebuild. They had returned to human space, no longer just remnants, but a symbol of resistance and hope. The ship was alive with activity as the crew worked to strengthen its defenses, refine their strategy, and search for allies who could stand with them against the Krell. "How are you holding up?" Leora asked, her voice gentle. Kane gave her a small smile. "Better now that we're moving forward." Leora sat down beside him, her eyes fixed on the stars. "The galaxy is vast," she said quietly, "but even the smallest light can push back the darkness." Kane watched her for a moment before speaking. "You believe that?" "Yes," Leora replied, her voice firm. "Because we've seen it. Every step we've taken, every battle we've won, has been a testament to that." They sat in silence, the weight of their journey pressing lightly against them. The crew had become more than allies. They were a family, united by a common purpose. Back on the ship, the crew gathered in the central meeting hall. Kane stood at the front, addressing them with the same conviction he had always carried. "We've faced overwhelming odds before," he began, his voice strong and steady. "But we've survived because of one thing, our unity. Together, we've shown that no force can extinguish our will to thrive." Terran and the engineers nodded in agreement, their expressions resolute. "And with every victory, we learn," Terran added. "We adapt, and we grow stronger." Leora stood beside Kane, her presence anchoring the room. "There are still dangers out there, but we're not alone anymore. We'll seek out allies, forge new paths, and rebuild the foundations of humanity." A murmur of agreement spread through the crew. They had faced devastation, but their resilience had built a foundation for something greater, a future. As the ship continued its journey, they explored distant star systems, seeking new allies and technologies to strengthen their cause. Kane's leadership was a guiding force, blending ancient human strategies with the innovative advancements of viridary technology. One evening, as the ship settled into orbit around a promising planet, Leora found Kane on the observation deck once again. "This system has potential," she said. "It could be a safe haven for displaced humans." Kane stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the planet below. "We've been searching for a place like this for a long time. We'll protect it," Leora assured him. "Just like everything else we fought to keep." They shared a quiet moment, watching the distant world. It was a moment of reflection, where hope met reality, and where the future was built on the efforts of those who refused to give up. News of humanity's resurgence began to spread, slowly but surely. Other species, once unaware of the human struggle, began to understand that the fight was far from over. Alliances were formed, and trust slowly rebuilt. Back on the ship, Kane stood at the helm, guiding them through a patch of star systems where ancient human colonies once flourished. The ship's AI processed the data, mapping out paths for exploration, while the crew worked tirelessly to ensure their safety. Leora approached him, a look of determination in her eyes. "We're ready," she said, "for whatever comes next." Kane gave a soft nod. "We've come too far to turn back now." The ship surged forward, the stars stretching endlessly ahead. Beyond the void, beyond the conflicts, was the future, a future they were determined to shape together. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay beyond the stars. Together, they would build a new legacy for humanity.